Match 11 of the Vitality Blast is a highly volatile market where your fantasy capital is immediately at risk. Surrey women are defending champions, sitting at the top of the table after 2 convincing wins. Durham remains unbeaten, but they are a mid-table squad stepping into deep water with only 1 game of data to their name. This disparity is visible in the metrics. Surrey brings an international lineup home, while Durham brings a solid core to a difficult away fixture. Historically, it's lopsided. In 2025, Surrey piled up 348 runs against Durham, creating a probability heavily favoring the champions. Since a Surrey win offers 0 actionable value for your strategy, the challenge is figuring out how to allocate your limited resources to survive a Surrey steamroller. Every manager operates under a strict salary cap, making budget the primary constraint for Match 11. Acquiring Surrey's top-tier stars, like Alice Capsey and Danny Wyatt Hodge, requires paying an absolute premium. Locking them in immediately drains the majority of your available capital. Conversely, the Durham roster offers cheap, high-leverage options for anyone willing to stomach the risk. Roster construction forces a choice between paying for expensive, mathematical guarantees or gambling on cheap differentials to save budget. Success in this match requires removing fan bias and treating player selection as a strict asset allocation problem. Every single point must justify its cost. One approach is the Surrey stack, aggressively spending capital to acquire Surrey's top 3 batters. This group represents elite international talent. You are buying high-floor players with the experience to deliver consistent fantasy points. This strategy provides a near certainty of securing reliable, foundational points for your lineup. However, buying the stack completely depletes your remaining salary cap. Because the money is tied up at the top, you're forced to draft lower-quality players in your remaining roster spots to balance the books. There is also a statistical ceiling to this. Because Surrey's stars are owned by the majority of the public, their success provides no differential advantage against your opponents. Buying the Surrey stack is a defensive mechanism. It protects a high rank, but it does not provide the leverage needed to climb a leaderboard. Venue conditions can often override a player's baseline stats, and the Kia Oval is a specific type of environment. Surrey's home ground is famously a batter's paradise, defined by true, predictable bounce and a lightning-fast outfield. These variables multiply the scoring potential for aggressive batters while heavily penalizing slow, looping deliveries. This creates a potential trap. Managers looking at 2025 stats might be tempted to draft Durham's leading wicket-takers like Katie Levick based on seasonal performance. But relying on spin bowlers at the Oval exposes your roster to the Surrey batters who are perfectly calibrated to exploit these exact conditions. Drafting Durham spinners here carries a high probability of negative points as their economy rates inflate. Finding an alternative to the expensive Surrey stack requires a mid-tier asset that can generate points across multiple phases of the game. The primary target for this strategy is Durham's new all-rounder, Heather Graham. All-rounders function as a structural hedge. They offer 2 separate opportunities, with both bat and ball, to generate a return on your investment. Surrey's brief top-order collapse against Yorkshire earlier this season provides the statistical proof that betting against the favorites is possible, even if it is rare. We can visualize this by plotting cost against expected return on a quadrant chart. Surrey stars like Capsey sit in the high-cost, high-return quadrant, reliable but expensive. Heather Graham occupies a different space, lower cost with high potential return due to her dual role. However, this hedge carries immense risk. If Surrey bats first and scores heavily, Graham's bowling figures will be ruined before she ever reaches the crease. Despite that risk, Graham represents the only mathematically viable way to differentiate a roster for those who need to make up ground. This decision tree provides a definitive blueprint for Match 11 based on your individual standings. If you are currently defending a lead, prioritize the safe floor. Draft the Surrey core and avoid the Durham bowlers. You must absorb the high cost of the favorites because missing out on their home ground points is fatal to a frontrunner. For those who need to catch up, use the contrarian build. Draft Graham and Holly Armitage and bet on a Surrey collapse. To close a points gap, you have to ignore the obvious favorites, hoard cheap Durham talent, and hope for a low probability event. For the casual observer, the first innings will likely showcase elite batting, but the statistical probability of a close finish is very low. In heavily lopsided matchups, the most effective managers prioritize budget management over the obvious task of picking a winner.